Many of you may have seen an image already, perhaps as you entered the building this morning. What are we looking at? What? Shh. No spoilers. Just in its most simple words, what are we looking at here? It's our values, right? So this is the new language in our bylaws, our shared Unitarian Universalist values that were adopted by a delegate vote at the UU General Assembly this past summer. Here's another design that has been floating around in UU circles. I'm sure we're going to see many more artistic representations emerging from all across Unitarian Universalism in the coming months and years, perhaps from right here in our own congregation. Now, I'm not going to read you the entire text, but I do want to provide a quick abridged version of each one. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. Pluralism. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We promise to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Okay, now I need you to repeat all of those back to me. One of the most meaningful ways that we teach our children about the world and our place in it is through storytelling. Now, there's a reason that nations, cultures, and faith traditions frame themselves through narratives. Many of us may have witnessed the Democratic Party spend this past week telling stories about what it means to be an American, highlighting the ways that we look out for our families, friends, and neighbors, nurture our communities, and work for a better future. A list of words can only go so far. But stories, we're drawn to stories that help us understand ourselves and one another. So I thought perhaps we can bring these values to life by revisiting a few of the stories that we've told from this podium. I'm going to bring up a slide, and I want to see if you can figure out which value this story might represent. Now, these values often overlap, as the value articulation says in itself, that they are not independent of one another. Each one is just a petal in the flower, one spoke in the wheel. Choose your metaphor. So there's more than one correct answer, but I did my best to find stories that I felt centered one value in particular. All right, this one's easy. Can anyone remind us what this story is about? Do you know what the story is? Who remembers the story, just in a quick sentence or two? Yeah. Yes, it's about a robot named Z who tries to figure out what love means. He goes on an adventure, finds somebody who he thinks might have the answer, and then he discovers he had the answer all along. In this story, Z discovers that love is the care and tenderness offered by his robot family. It is truly the power that holds us all together. So from here on out, the test gets a little bit harder. Next up, Desmond gets free. Does anyone remember what this story is about? Yeah. Yes, so our hero mouse, Desmond, is stuck because an elephant is sitting on his tail. So in the end, all of his mouse friends band together to help him get free using their collective voices. So, which value might this represent? I heard justice. What do you think about justice? The mice work together to fight oppression. and make sure that they all get to thrive. Isn't that the essence of justice? No, there's also equity, interdependence, blah, 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 blah. They're all in there all the time. But I think it's nice to get to see sort of one value in action. All right, now our next slide. Perfectly Norman. Who remembers this one? Yep. That was very good. So, our child Norman grows wings and is terrified of being different. And so he hides himself under a coat. But it makes him so miserable, and his family can see how unhappy he is, that eventually he wants to be his true self, and that desire to be loved and accepted finally helps him spread his wings and fly. And then it turns out there's a whole bunch of other kids that get to fly too, that he inspired. So any idea what this value might illustrate? There's a few. This one's a tricky one. That's in there, but that's not the one I hung on to. Equity, very good. We all get to celebrate what makes us special with encouragement, support, and the right resources from our community. All right, next up. After the fall, how Humpty Dumpty got back up again. Are we remembering these stories? It's fun to kind of remember them, you know. Anyone remember what happens in this one? Yeah.
He falls off the wall and then is scared to death. He's sad. He's scared of a lot of things. He can't go to high shelves in a grocery store, climb to a bunk bed. And then he decides to climb up the wall and transforms into
That is absolutely right. So after our bird-watching egg falls off the wall, he finds himself terrified to climb up on top again. But he reaches inside himself and finds the courage to face his fear. And just as he makes it back to the top of the wall, his true bird self hatches and flies off into the sky. So I think we know which value this one is about, right? Transformation. We are always growing and adapting to the world. That journey of transformation and change is essential to being part of a loving community. 4 down, 3 to go. I wonder if anyone remembers which 3 are left. All right, next up. Unstoppable! Does anyone remember this one? This was actually at a congregational meeting, so it was if you watched it online. Yes.
I seem to recall that someone wanted to make a change, but couldn't do it on their own, so they kept teaming up in larger and larger different groups to find their collective power.
Are you talking about Bird Robertal Bear?
I am talking about that.
So in this amazing tale, a bear, a crab, a turtle, and a bird, and the bear's name is Steve, by the way, join forces with the U.S. Congress to stop a shopping mall from taking over their forest. So, which value do we see here? Pluralism. It's this diverse group of animals, all with different strengths. They band together, bringing their own talents and gifts to make a difference in the world, just as we are a collection of individuals gathering together for a shared purpose. All right, we have 2 left. Next up, the invisible web. Does anyone remember this one? This one isn't so much a plot or a narrative, but it is a beautiful illustration. Yeah. All right, well, you jumped over the part about what the story is about, but I think you nailed it. So we see a world here in which every living thing is connected to every other living thing with invisible strings. It's actually the sequel to The Invisible String. And so when something happens to one of us, it affects all of us. And so I think we can see interdependence here. We celebrate being a part of something greater than ourselves, this magnificent web of life. And now our final story. Thank you, Amu. Does anyone remember what happens in this one? Yeah. Nope, you got it. Absolutely. So Amu has made herself a pot of soup, but the amazing smell of it attracts everyone in town, and she shares it with each person that stops by. Only to discover at dinner, she's given it all away. But just in time, the entire community shows up with food to share with her and everyone else, and they have a massive feast. So, what is our final value? Generosity. We share resources, we take care of one another, we love unconditionally, grounded in hope and optimism. So we named love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, independence, and generosity. Now, I did pick that particular order for a reason. Does anyone happen to know what that would be? JETPIG. Here is our JETPIG. So, it is an acronym created by UU religious professionals and educators to provide a framework for understanding and memory for all of our ages. Now, have you ever heard the saying, when pigs fly? What does that mean, essentially? Yeah, I mean, it essentially means we say it when we think something's impossible, right? Well, our JETPIG, JETPIG, is powered by love, which means anything is possible, including a more just, peaceful, and compassionate world. When SGD begins in a few weeks, we're going to actually make a jetpack for our JETPIG. And this fall, we're going to have a naming contest. I hope that we can all embrace this joyful representation of what matters most to our community and our faith. We've heard the word joy a lot in the last few weeks, I think, many of us. And honestly, it feels so refreshing and invigorating and energizing to hear that word again. I think we all miss it. And so I really hope that we can all embrace our joyful JETPIG. JETPIG is sort of the way we're going to frame it. Now, all of these new values are embedded in the stories that we tell every Sunday, and as are our 7 principles and 6 sources. There's a reason we used these stories before. They worked for across, decades. Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition, and we can honor our past even as we embrace a new way forward, especially when we remember to grow together. May it always be so.